Hello, welcome to the channel. So we've got this WEM Dominator MK3. This will probably be about the third video on this amp. One of them was when I serviced it, and the other one there we changed the out, put tubes in it, some military grade Mullard tubes, and I've now sold this to a good friend of mine, but he wants a mid control on it, and we recently fitted a mid control on the WEM Westminster, which is also his amplifier. So we're going to strip this down and fit a mid pot. Now, where we're going to put it, well, the treble boost on these is really not a deal of use. These amps are really bright enough, they don't really need a treble boost. So we're going to remove the treble boost switch and fit the mid pot in there. Now, it will only be on this channel. Because obviously they're two independent channels and they've got two independent tone stacks, so it's just going to be on this channel. So we're going to strip this down now, get on the bench, and then we can have a look. We'll look at the schematic and just see how we're going to do this. Right, we're on the bench, and first thing we need to do is remove this switch, this bright switch. So that's the first job. Right, you can see we've got our mid pot in, and again I'll have some knobs, original WEM knobs, so we'll find an original knob to go on it, and that should be a winner. Right, so we've got this WEM, and I'm going to take the board out to do this, and I've just got to get those free because of the wires on there. Let's try and get it over just a little bit more. So this here, this resistor, is the mid resistor. This is the tone stack here on this channel. And this is the input coming in here, into this circuit here. So we need to remove that mid resistor first of all. And obviously to do that, we're going to take the board out. So to get the board out of these, you just take the knobs off. Let me just come back a bit. You just take the knobs off, take the nuts off the pots, and then there's 1, 2, 3 bolts. You just take those nuts off those, and it should come out and fold over, but we'll need to remove these. We do need to remove these jack sockets, and we need to remove the ground off here. You can't see, let me just tilt it here. We'll need to remove the ground from there. Sorry, I've just made that go out of focus. Just click that. We need to remove the ground from here. Right, so we've got the we just go in a bit more. So we've got the pot wired up, you can see here, and got some heat shrink on there. It just makes it look nice and tidy. It's just something I always do. You don't have to. I've chose red for the wiper, and I've got yellow, and then we've got ground here, and I've just soldered that onto the left terminal there as we're looking at it, and just then soldered it to the back of the pot. I've got the cable going out here, and you can see we've got our tone stack here, either one we could look at, because they're identical. So the ground will be, because obviously the pot's now got to go to ground, the mid pot, that resistor's been removed. So the ground of the pot will go to ground on the board where the resistor was at one end, and then here this will go to the wiper. Now this capacitor here will go to the wiper, and the yellow wire on the pot will be to this 250k here, and that's how we fit it in the circuit. Excuse my voice, it's a bit ropey this morning. Right, if we look here, we've got the 8.2 mid resistor, we've removed that, but this is still connected to the pot here, and we need to cut that trace now and then wire our pot, our wiper, and the other end of the pot, the yellow wire that you can see on there, that you saw on there. We need to wire that to the pot, so the pot's actually going in between the capacitor and the potentiometer there, and then the ground is just going to here to ground, which I've already soldered on here. And if we turn that over, you can see that well, you might be able to see. I might just have to make that lighter now because we've been looking at the schematic and the paper overexposes it. So there you can see now I've got the grounded there, so that's one connected up. So if we look at our board, it's connecting on this end of the capacitor as well, not that end. And if we look, there's, let me just bring the camera up. So if we look, this trace here is that capacitor there, you can see, and that goes up to there. So we need to cut that trace and solder one of our wires to there and the other wire to there. And if we look on this schematic, this is just a Marshall tone stack on here, and if we look, we can see the wiper is going from the capacitor there to the wiper of the mid pot and the yellow and the other end of the pot. So red wire we've got as the wiper will go to the capacitor, and the yellow wire will go to the base pot. And always remember on these WEMs, volume, bass, treble. Most amps run volume, treble and bass, but on these it's volume, bass, treble, so that's the base pot. So we'll cut that trace and then simply we'll wire the red wire, the center tap, which the wiper there on the, sorry, the wiper, not center tap, the wiper, and then the yellow wire will go to the pot there, and that'll be complete. There we go, I've cut the trace there, and yellow wire soldered on there, and the other wire I've actually just soldered to the capacitor there. Whoops, hang on. It's just to the capacitor there on the side there, and he's ready to go back in now. Just a few things to remember when you're doing this, that the traces on these boards are really strong, and you can't lift that bit of trace I cut. I couldn't lift that with a Stanley knife, and I ended up putting the iron across it and heating it up, and it just peeled off. But it took a good 10-15 seconds before it did with the heat, so it's good. They're good strong boards, the traces on these. And the only other thing is when you're soldering these thin wires, make sure you've got the temperature of the soldering iron as low as you can get away with, and don't hold the iron on them too long, because it just melts all the plastic, and then it looks a bit of a mess. So just on quick with the iron. And if you go in with the iron and the solder and you have a go and you don't get it, you don't get the solder to come off again, give it a few seconds to cool down and then go back at it again. Don't just keep leaving the iron on feet, because they'll just melt. And once, as I say, and it just flares all the plastic back, and then it does look a bit of a mess when you. So it's just a bit of advice there. Right, so just ended up with the cam. You can see I've got an array of tools on here that I've used to take this thing to bits. So I'm going to put it all back together now, and then we'll fire it up and test it. Right, I'm going to switch on, and at the moment you can see I've got this pretty temporary. So we've got the board wedged up here because we haven't got the bolts in. I've connected the ground up, and let's take that out. It always pays to just check when you're looking in here and when I tightened that ground bolt up and pulled the ratchet off, the socket stayed on the nut and I didn't notice. Just goes to show that's it wouldn't have caused a problem, but it is under the main switch. And I'd put the main switch back in and still not spotted it. But anyway, it's always best to just check round before you switch on. Just have one check, and spotted that. We'll plug in. We've got a 150 watt bulb. Let's give it a go. Bulb's not even lit. Got the speaker connected up, so we're just going to test it before I put all this back together. I'm a numpty. I wired the pot the wrong way around. Just realised, because I was looking at these, but these are face down. And when I was looking at that, that was about 90 hertz, because that speaker, I don't think it'll like it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, we've got that wire back to front. I am a plank. Yeah. Right, so I've got this board out again, and I've had enough of these fixings. So what I'm doing is changing things. So these are the original fixings for this board. There's 3 of them. And what happens is every time you take the nuts off, they just fall through, and then you have to take this old chassis off this board. Well, I'm fed up of doing that. So I've decided to modify these. So I've got these bolts here. We just have a look. Pull those towards me. So I've got these powerful glasses on. So we're going to put these in. These are M4s. I've already widened the holes out, and I've put the 3 bolts in there. Got to be a bit careful, but there's, just see 1, 2, and another one here. I just need to nip those up tight, and then what we're going to do is put another nut on each of these, screw it down, drop this back down on there, and then put some nuts on just to fasten it up, and then they won't drop through anymore, and you won't have to keep stripping that down. So seems logical. Right, I've nipped those out. I need some more M4 nuts as well, because I'm going through these like wano. It's an interesting saying, wano. Going through these like wano. I wonder where that came from. If anybody knows where that saying came from, let me know in the comments. Right. Right, I've got most of it back together now, well, or just about all of it. We've got these nuts on here now, you can see that we said we were going to put on there. We've got those on. That's all solid now, better now. Next time we take these nuts off, or someone else does, the bolts won't fall through, so we won't have to take these nuts off here. Now, I also did a slight mod with these, because I put these big washers on, because there wasn't actually any washers on there. And you've got a slither of foam here, you can just about see, and then there's another slither underneath. So with these, then you just wind them up, and put not mega tight, because obviously you want some of the foam. The idea of the foam is it cushions the chassis, I suppose, and and they're getting moved around, kind of a good idea. Like so, and then all we need to do is tighten up this switch, this power switch, which I had to take out to get to the ground. I've also split off the chassis ground, put it on its own, which you can't see in there, but you can see it there. So I'll split that off as well. Should have done that last time. Still works okay, it's just the proper way of doing it. So now it's done properly. So I'm going to nip that switch up, and then we are going to run this up and just check that we're not missing any voltages and things, and everything's running okay. I've swapped the wires around on the pot, by the way. What a knob I am. A plank. So yes, we're almost ready to roll with this now, and if all the voltages are there, then we could just get it back in its cabinet, and it's ready for the customer. It's most delightful. Right, we're all up and running. We've tightened that switch up, and got a speaker hooked up, got everything back together now. Now we're just going to do some voltage checks just to make sure everything is hunky-dory and no wires have fallen off anywhere. It happens when you're taking boards out. It all seems to be running right. Right, let's check the bias then. So measure across the cathode resistor, and we have, we can get a voltage 7.88, so 7.89. Where's my calculator, madam? There it is. Divide by 97, because that's what that resistor is. Strange how I remember things. So divide that by 2, take away 5%, that's 38.6 milliamps per tube. And now we are going to measure from plate to cathode. So the plate is on here, and the cathode voltage is here. And we have got 300 volts, 301 volts. And that gives us 11.6 watts. That's fine. So that is perfect. So that's all those measurements look good. Now just a little bit about these tubes, these CV4039s. There is a video on fitting these into these amps, and these tubes are Mullard military grade tubes, and they are very cheap to buy. Like a set of those will probably cost you somewhere around about less than 20 quid anyway, less than £20, and they are awesome tubes. But to get them to work in this Dominator, you have to change a couple of things. If we check there, you can see we've got 1.5k resistor. That's that green, let's just flick, that's that green resistor there going across the can cap, and that is from nodes 1 to nodes 2. I increased that to 10k, and the reason I did that is that the maximum plate volts on these tubes is 300 volts, and yeah, I am running them at the limit, but so most companies push them well over, but they're at the limit, 300 volts. Remember, an EL84 is rated at 300 volts, and most people are pushing them up to 350, sometimes 4, although they only last about a year with the regular use. So we've got those at 300 volts on the plate, but the screens I think are 250, so we have to get the screens down. Either, I can't remember if it's 220 or 250 now, but anyway, I think it's 250. I've got the screens down, and that's why we dropped this resistor, because we'll have probably 290 volts on the screens, and in fact that's roughly what we've got on this schematic. If we look there, we've got 290 volts, but now we've dropped that So now let's check our screen voltage. Technically it should be screen to cathode, but we'll do it screen to ground. It doesn't make much difference. So if we go into the screens there, and I just tap the thing back in focus because we've focused it on the schematic, you can see we've got 235 volts on the screens there, so 15 volts below on that. So that gets the screen voltage right for the tubes, dead easy. You just swap that 1.5k for the 10, but now you're a bit low on plate volts for the preamp tubes. So if we look back at the schematic again, just tap it into focus, we can see here it says 240 volts. Now obviously we've just reduced that screen voltage from 90 to 235. So to get that voltage back, this 10k resistor is the drop-in resistor for the preamp stage. So what we do, we drop that, the 10k to 1k, just tap that, and which is that resistor there, which is now laid down because it's got crushed while I've had the board out, and I'm not lifting it up while it's plugged in, so wait till I've switched it off and stand it back up. That's now 1k resistor. You can keep the original cathode resistor if you're using these values of resistors, 100 ohms. So if we now check what we've got the other side of that resistor from the screens, that's the dropper there, we've got 230. So I've lost 10 volts off the plates, which is off the plates on the preamp tubes, and I've got 154, and I think there was just shy of 160 before, if I remember. So we've hardly lost any volts off there. So all you have to do to use these tubes is swap that 1.5k for a 10k, swap your 10k dropper to your preamp stage for a 1k, and if we actually look both sides of that resistor there, you can see we've got 234 on the screen side, and if we look on the drop side we've got 229. So that virtually gets that preamp running as it was, no problem. You've got these tubes in, they'll last years. Even if you're gigging a lot and you want to change them in 5 years, if you could buy 4 or 5 sets at that money. How much is a set of EL84s now, or even a set of JJs? £50 plus postage, so 60 quid. And if you're going for something like tongue soles or something a little bit more expensive, you could be into 80, 90 quid. So these are about 660, and then they're about just shy of 20 quid with the postage. The way I've just adding it up, so you buy 4 sets of those for the price of a decent set of EL84s, and these are new old stock military grade tubes. They're awesome. Anyway, enough of my waffling. Let's get this. We'll get the hoover in and just clean up, because I can still see a little bit of debris in there. We'll clean it all up and get it back in its case and give it a blast and test our new mid pot. Right, I've got this WEM. Thought we'd just have a bit of an up close and personal on the controls. So that's the full mid. That's half of it. And that's none of it. Which I quite like. Yes, some rusty country playing. Brings up the volume as well quite a bit when you... That's with all the mid out. Again. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's really nice with all the mid out. It just takes away just a little bit of boxiness. But there's no boxiness whatsoever when you turn that mid out. That sounds really tasty. On the other hand, if we turn it all in, we can get a really woody So yeah, you can do so much with these amplifiers. They're just so moddable. Yeah, a brilliant bit of kit. So that'll do it for this one. So thanks for watching. You all take care, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye for now.